our chair and CEO.
Thanks, Jerry. Thanks for chairing this. And thank you, everyone, for coming out. These meetings are these weekends, especially early in the summer and in the nice part of the spring, are precious. And so I certainly understand the weight that you all give to being here today, because Lord knows I've got enough yard work to do myself. You all, I'm sure, have it to do. So thanks for coming out today. We're going to try to keep the business part of the meeting fairly tight, move through all of our regulatory affairs and everything as laid out in the agenda fairly quickly, so that we can get out in the woods, because as we all know, that's why we're all here, is to keep more forests intact in our rural communities and on the landscape than there were before. And the best conversations always happen in the woods as well. So I'm not going to drone on is essentially what I'm promising right now. Now I will say that one of the things as we've been getting the company up to speed and built is we're understanding more and more all the time the painful but necessary act of capturing what you're doing at any given time, recording it and creating content that can be shared more widely. Now, I don't have a natural predisposition to social media content creation, although some people in my life would say I'm fairly animated at times. But I am recording this today and going to be not necessarily sharing it, but this is, as much as anything, building some muscle memory around capturing presentations that are given and meetings that are had, so that we can tell the world about who we are, why we came together, and the impact that we're having. Because if you can't share it, then it doesn't really happen. So just to let everyone know that today. Now, like I said, I'm going to be fairly brief here, and what I want to really draw everyone's attention to, and where we've been seeing at the board level as we've been moving through building our brand and building our identity, what is so unique and inspiring about growing forests in our group. You hear all the time in the popular conversation around climate change that communities must lead, and we need grassroots community action for climate change, and often it's absence of the context of what that means. You know, we all help out by not mowing our lawns during May to contribute to the pollinators, but what does climate action from the grassroots at a community level look like that's got the opportunity to address some of these problems at a scale that really starts to move the needle? And you know, we are 75 citizen investors in growing forests. Well, through our first CDIF round that we closed on last year, you know, we have 75 individuals who are all bringing small amounts of investment together, bundling it to have a disproportionate impact, an outsized impact. And that's something that's really quite unique. I got pushed early on to identify what kind of a company we're like. Whose model are we following? Who's breaking the ground in front of us? And looking around the world, I cannot find another example of a for-profit corporation like ours that is formed of citizens from the area in which the forest exists, that are coming together, bringing their resources together to preserve and conserve forests in their area. And not only that, do so in such a way that still maintains those forests as working forests that contribute to the local economic livelihood of our rural communities. I am confident that we are a globally unique group and a globally unique movement in our composition. We've got shareholders from one end of the province to the other, and we're committed over the coming years to really fleshing that out. We want shareholders in every rural corner of this province and urban. But that community-led climate action piece is something that we should all really hold our heads up and feel proud about. Because, I came out of the academic sector and moved right into the not-for-profit sector. Spent a lot of time working in environmental not-for-profits and spent a lot of time talking about the need for community-led action. I think we are one of the best examples that you can find of how a grassroots initiative that's really moving the needle. Community-led action is about acknowledging where the unique opportunities are within your local community to reduce emissions, to build carbon on the landscape, and then doing the hard work of pulling together the organizational structures and pulling together the skill sets to actually make that happen. Because all the good intentions of the world, in the absence of the competencies to act on those good intentions, it's not meaningless, but it certainly doesn't have the impact that it potentially could. And so that's a theme that I'm going to be hitting on. We're going to be hitting on throughout our meeting, and hopefully throughout our conversations, about the hard work that we're doing at the board on your behalf to pull together the experiences and the skill sets that are going to allow us to take on this issue in Nova Scotia at a scale that matters. Now, there's 5 million acres of private forest land in Nova Scotia. We're somewhere between 20 and 40,000 acres of private land are clear-cut every year in Nova Scotia, depending on the level of activity in the forestry sector. And a lot of that is being driven by woodlot owners who, as they get older, they need to figure out what they're going to do with their land, or they need money, right? They need to stay in their houses longer, they need to renovate them, they want to help their grandkids with going through university, all these normal life pressures that we all feel. And the only place they have to turn traditionally has been the only reliable, quick place they can turn to turn their forests into cash is someone who's going to clear cut the property, or sell that property to someone who's going to clear cut it. And so if we want to be acting on a scale as growing forests that actually starts to touch on that, starts to reduce that 20 to 40,000 acres of clear cutting a year, touch on that scale, then we need to continue to bring together a team with the competencies and experience to pull that off. And I think we're doing a great job at that. And so on that note, I'm excited to introduce our board of directors. Now, a few people have some personal conflicts, and they thought they'd be here today, but weren't able to make it. I feel really proud about the group we pulled together at the board level, and I'm excited about the new additions to the board and where we're headed with that. And so Jerry introduced himself right away. He is the vice chair of our board, and Jerry's experience and background, he was, how long were you at the airport, Jerry?
3 decades, maybe?
Yeah, a little while. A VP at the airport, and owns and operates a mixed forest, blueberry. You still have cattle?
Leasing the pastures out.
Yeah, leasing the pastures out. A mixed land use enterprise out in Belmont. And Jerry's been there right from the get-go, helping to pull this together. Like he said, we started, I think, in April of 2020 with Zoom calls. So it was an interesting pandemic launch. Donna Spracklin, who you've all met. Thanks, Donna. Donna is also a North Nova member and has been at the table right from the get-go helping out. Donna is a retired veterinarian, ran Fundy.
Fundy Veterinarians, yes.
Yes, that was her operation. Donna was part of the group that formed around Matatall Lake when they were struggling with nutrient loading issues in that watershed. And Donna has been, like I said, has also been there right from the get-go. Phil Adams, our treasurer, is an outgoing director. He wasn't able to make it today. But Phil is a long-time staple of northern Nova Scotia forestry and blueberries, he continues to run a blueberry and maple syrup operation. Jorg at the back, if you don't mind outing yourself, Jorg. Jorg is a director that has been hugely influential in contributing to growing forests and building the processes around land procurement. I'm not sure if there's anyone else in the region that has looked at as much forest land for the purposes of acquisition as Jorg has over the years. And so he and Gloria often get harassed on a regular basis by me, blowing up their phone, looking for advice. Sandy at the back. Sandy Hyde is also on our board. And Sandy is, many of you know Sandy. He worked up here for years with North Nova. He's back down in Lunenburg County now, but there's few foresters or forest technicians that I would turn to for advice before Sandy. He's looked at a lot of land over the years, understands private lands forestry as well as anyone, and also a close personal friend. Craig Applegath is a director. He actually is from Toronto, one of our out of province shareholders, of which we have 4. Craig is an architect, specializes in mass timber construction, and Craig and I go back a number of years. It was his firm that bought the initial carbon offsets from Community Forests International, his architecture firm, where I cut my teeth on the technical aspects of carbon offset project development. And so Craig is really brings a keen perspective from the buyer's side of things about what corporate buyers are looking for carbon offset purchases. David Stevenson, another local from the area, he as well had a personal conflict. He sends his regards. David was one of the primary components in Cumberland Colchester wind fields, and David was an absolute wealth of knowledge through the CDIF development process, and has been helping out a lot, and he's going to be stepping back this year as well. And finally, Peter Porteous is the last of our sitting directors right now. Peter is an interesting fellow. He comes with a very strong background in business. He currently works for Steel, ran Stanfields for years. He said it was pretty well a coin toss coming out of high school into university, whether he was going to go the forestry route or the business route. And he's been involved with multiple conservation organizations in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick over the years. But he's been a real help with helping the company build its professional corporate-facing front. And bring on board the capacities we need from a business management perspective. And so, as I mentioned, Philip and David are both outgoing directors. They're both taking a time to step back, and while neither of them are here, I want to take the opportunity to acknowledge the significant contribution that they did make, and thank them both for the time that they put in. Philip in the early days really was critical in making sure that we were clear on what we were doing. And you know that when Philip gave you the nod to go forward and felt comfortable that we were on the right track, that we in fact would be on the right track. And David, like I said, his experience in the Community Economic Development Investment Fund program was absolutely irreplaceable. And so, like I said, I want to acknowledge and thank both of their contributions over the last few years. And so, to briefly look back at 2022, we've been moving so quickly with this company that it's often quite remarkable looking backwards on what's been accomplished. You know, we held our, excuse me a second. We held our initial seed investment round under the CDIF program, where the majority of you came in as you all came in as shareholders. This was really affirming of the early hypothesis we had that there was a significant community out there willing to contribute to keeping forests intact in their backyards. Of the $657,000 that we raised, it was a median investment of about $5,000 per investor. And so we took a large number of investments across the spectrum, but a disproportionate amount from within that $5,000 range. And that was really nice to see that there was that groundswell of support. And we raised this money. We launched our CDIF on the 18th of January. I think the overall market peaked, the Dow Jones and the NASDAQ peaked in about 4 days before that. And so there was a significant decline in overall economic sentiment throughout our raise, and we still, I think, had a really good showing. I came on board in July after we closed that round as a full-time CEO. We acquired 650 acres, all of which are in Colchester County, and we started our first active management on this property that we're going to be checking out today. Now, it ended up being a hurricane cleanup job, but we had planned to do this work anyway, and we netted just over $37,000 in revenue, cleaning up trees that blew down that we frankly were going to be cutting anyway. We in 2022 as well, we signed a carbon storage agreement on a short-term pilot project that was run out of from a joint pilot project run between Community Forest International and a group out of the U.S. Which was an interesting way to test the waters with what they were offering. That revenue, we expect that the project period closes in a few days, and we expect that revenue in the upcoming quarter of 2023. We had multiple media appearances and did a good job getting our name out there. And you know, perhaps least compelling of all, but I think maybe one of the things that I feel the most proud of is that we've built a really strong corporate structure and operations that are going to allow us to develop into, grow into the kind of company that can act at a scale that has a significant impact on improving the forest landscape in this province. And so, you know, what does that look like? And I don't want to drill into too many specifics, so don't worry, I'm not going to quiz you on this. But to give you an idea of how the board functions, because this is happening all the time in the background, in between updates. Our board of directors, we meet now on a bi-monthly basis, and we've broken out operations into committees. And we've established 5 committees, each of which has its own chair of a member of the board, a member of the board, has its own terms of reference and its own responsibilities. And so those 5 committees, we've got strategy, oversight, and management, which is like the executive oversight committee, finance, compliance and investor relations, forest management and acquisitions, and product development and marketing. And each committee reports back to the board at every board meeting on progress and on what priorities are for the next 2-month period. And in this way, we've been able to develop a very professional and efficient cadence to our board meetings and to oversight of the company. And so, you know, I feel very proud about what we've been able to establish. Like I said, it's maybe the least compelling part. Flowcharts are much less compelling than a beautiful 330-acre woodlot, but I think it's a testament to how hard we've been working to lay the groundwork to be a company that can operate at the order of magnitude that has a positive, it really moves the needle in a positive direction on emissions and forest loss in this province. And so looking forward into 2023, we've really got 3 core focuses. Getting our product built, particularly our carbon offset product, is our core focus for 2023. We are building a carbon offset project on the land base that we have. Now we're considering adding some additional lands, but those haven't gone in front of the board yet, so I don't want to talk about that too much, but here's a hint, it might be in Cape Breton. We're building our carbon project envelope that will allow us to generate carbon offsets that we can sell. And with those sales, we will be able to validate our business model, that we can use the revenue from carbon and ecological forestry to pay for the lands that we're acquiring, and then roll that over to buy more lands. And so 2023, product is a core focus. Marketing is another focus. I'm pointing at that thing that's tracking me and recording me. Communications is so critical these days, and with society being hyper online and hyper connected, being able to get your word out there directly to people, letting them know that you exist, letting them know what we're doing. We're getting great traction on LinkedIn, great traction on Instagram. Our mission is resonating with people. And so as that resonance builds, and as we continue to tell our story and get our story out there, we're looking forward to welcoming more people into the shareholder group, and really building this movement from the grassroots. And the third primary focus is revenue, because revenue is the oxygen for our company. Getting our lines of revenue built out, be it carbon, ecological forest management, and also starting to look at things like recreation. What are those? Building our revenue model, improving our revenue model so that you as investors know that this is a profitable enterprise, that you see that you can get returns and feel confident investing in the company. Proving our revenue model is critical going forward here for 2023. And so to those ends, we are excited about adding new capacity to the board, and in particular 2 individuals who fit very nicely into this next phase of what our company is moving into. And so I'm going to introduce 2 individuals who will be we will be voting on potentially joining the board later today, who I think will really help us to grow into our potential. Sarah Riley is a Halifax-based strategy officer for RG Strategic. RG Strategic is Sarah co-founded it with Liz Goslin about a decade ago. It is a sustainability-oriented communications and marketing firm out of Halifax. They specialize in purpose-led businesses, helping businesses connect with their customers, businesses with missions, and also they work to do things like greenhouse gas emission audits with companies so that they can understand what their environmental impact is and help them develop strategies to be able to address and reduce that environmental impact. Sarah has an intimate understanding of what companies are looking for in terms of supporting a positive climate project and supporting positive environmental projects. And so I'm really excited about the prospect of Sarah joining the board and joining our committees, because she's going to, I think she's got the potential to really help us mature our marketing and communications in such a way that lets us connect with those customers, gets our carbon offset product crafted just perfectly, and then helps us prove that revenue model. Like I said, our core focus is for 2023. The second individual is not a fern, although it is a lovely fern. Darren McLean is the second individual who we will be considering for appointment to the board later on today. So Darren is a chartered professional accountant by training. Currently owns Hurricane lift truck in Burnside. Through the 90s, Darren was the controller, the operator of Down East MT&T Mobility, and built that company into the biggest privately owned cellular company in Canada. And then that company was subsequently sold to Bell Alliant for a very large sum of money. That was quite a feat that was accomplished. He then moved into a role as president of Atlantic Mobility Products, and then for 3 years more recently sat as the COO of the Armour Group, which is quite a significant transportation firm. All which is to say, Darren has significant business management and operation bona fides and experience that that he could bring to the board. He's got that strong background in growing private companies with the focus of a chartered professional accountant, which is a pretty mean combination and exactly the kind of capacity that we need at the board to grow into a much larger company and bigger company and realize our full potential. And so over the past couple months, we've been having a few meetings with Darren, and we're excited to be putting his name forward for recommendation and for a vote by us all later on today. And so looking forward past 2023 into what some of our goals are, our aspirations are, we want to be acquiring something on the order of 4,000 acres a year by 2025. That's the scale of operations in that 2020, that 3 to 5 year time frame that we want to achieve, which is when you're talking about the small private land base where 300 acres here, 150 acres there, it's quite a task to coordinate all those moving parts, but we're up for it. By that time, we want to be in the kind of position where we can consider the acquisition of larger industrial parcels of land, right? Every now and then, 30,000 acres here or 100,000 acres there comes up for sale. And we want to be in a position by that time to be able to take a serious swing at being able to acquire that kind of a land base, because the more land we have, the bigger the positive impact we can have on the land base. And there are some significant land bases out there that we want to be ready for if the opportunity arises. We've got a commitment to continuing to build momentum around our community investment model. What that looks like is continuing to hold CDIF investment rounds. We're considering whether or not to hold one again in 2023 right now. But we see that as a really great way to build the movement that we've started here and really help people shoulder the agency that we sometimes forget we all have to lead, for our communities to lead in addressing these emissions issues that we're focused at. And down the road, and just to let everyone know that we are focused on it and do see it on the horizon, is we want to be able to facilitate share transactions when shareholders down the road are looking to move on or sell their shares, and also return dividends to shareholders who are continuing to hold their shares. And so, last year when we were raising this first bit of money, I told people, if you need money back out of your investment within the next 5 years, this is probably not the place for you. But if you can look at that 5 to 10 year timeline, be patient and wait while we build this company into something that can do something special, then we will be focused on making sure that shareholders are able to transact shares when they're ready to move on and also benefit from profits by way of presumably dividends. And going forward, you know, it really is all about the land, right? And it's been a really interesting. That's why we're all here. It's the forest, and it's been a really interesting. Year of looking at what properties come in. We've looked at thousands of acres of land, and one thing I can tell you is that there's a lot of hurting forest out there in this province. There's a lot of severely degraded forest in this province. And there's still some beautiful properties as well. You know, like this 135 acres in Middle River, Cape Breton. A beautiful property, bookended by brooks on both ends. The one on the far end, or the other end of this property, is quite significant. It's almost as wide as this building, dumps right into Middle River. Beautiful salmon and trout habitat, and those hills are critical to managing that water, helping that watershed manage its highs and lows, and continue to maintain that fish habitat. And these are the kinds of properties that for me personally, when I'm out on the ground, climbing up one side of the hill and down the other, brings into focus how cool it is, what we're doing, the company that we've built, that we've all invested in, how remarkable it is, and how much of a privilege it is to work with these old landowners who are getting older. Kids have moved away. They know they need to do something with the property, and the only option they see in front of them is sell it to someone who's going to strip it. And to offer them another option is really a privilege that I feel pretty lucky to be able to do when the stars align. So yeah, like I said, keep your ears open for something on this. So with that, I will pass the floor back to Jerry, and we will have time later on in the meeting for some specific questions. We also can have good discussions in the woods as well. So with that, I'll pass it back